He ran a 4.36. So he's a deep threat. He's a type of guy. Yep. He's a type. He averaged, I think, his freshman year like 21 yards per catch.
I was sitting there. I looked at my brother.
Kai, watch him, bro. He's an animal.
I was like, yo, why is nobody talking about this dude?
He's like 23, 22, 23.
Yeah. So I think for me, he's going to be able to come in and give you an immediate impact. What's poppin'? You are now watching J.U.K Sports Show. I'm your host, King, right here with my boy, the homie, and my co-host, the homie Kai. What's happening, bro? How you feeling, fam?
Hey, what's good, man? It's good to be back, man. Back in action for another action-packed show. I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good. Yeah. Mace. Shout out to Mace, bro.
Hey, Murder Mace. Yeah. But before we get started, man, shout out to the sponsors, man. We haven't been there in a minute, but we still love y'all. If you want to do any photo shoots, music videos, podcasts like what you're watching, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. Make sure you follow all of our socials. We got Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, at KYNGRALPH, add an underscore for Twitter. Follow Kai on Instagram as well as the.houseofhoops. Basketball is up in full effect, so he's giving all types of breakdowns and analysis. Kawhi came back with a game winner, his boy. So shout out to the silent one. The claw.
Yeah, the silent one.
Terminate. And make sure you go follow us on Instagram as well at J.U.K. Sports Show. Like, subscribe, share, follow on Facebook as well as YouTube. The He Say, She Say, all one word channel. And we're going straight in, man. We got the 2-minute drill. So there's influx, and it's become a new trend. Chase did it. Nick Bosa sat out a whole season. Your people with sitting out bowl games in the pretty much to just prepare themselves to get an early start on getting ready for the draft. Are we in favor of sitting out bowl games?
So I'm going to take this from a fan perspective. And when I say a fan perspective, I can only speak to myself personally, personal fan, because I don't speak for every fan. But from a fan perspective, I'm actually not in favor of sitting out bowl games only because ever since I was a kid, the Maurice Clarett's of the world, looking at Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins and then Deshaun Watson's, all those different players of that ilk and just the star players, Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and Vince Young, right? The greatest college football game ever played. It had the stars in it. And so I feel like when players are sitting out bowl games, and it's not always like the major star, but it usually is a NFL draft player. So that matters. I'm not quite, excuse me, I'm not really in favor of it because of the appeal of watching the game. That's period. Like, I know you have some guys who they'll say that they're injured and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to question the validity of an injury, but just from an entertainment value and what I would like to see, I would love to see some of those senior guys actually play from a fan's perspective. However, in terms of draft stock, it doesn't always necessarily affect your draft stock. None of them we can look at Jamar Chase and him actually sitting out for like pretty much you had the season situation, and we saw he was still the first wide receiver off the board. We have the Ohio State, wide receiver, and he talking about the hamstring injury, and people are saying, well, he could actually play because people have played through worse, blah 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 blah, et cetera. So people then come into question your injury. So for me personally, just from a fan's perspective, Ralph, I personally would like to see the players play in the games, but I understand the agent and I understand that at the end of the day, everything is a business. So from a business perspective, they feel like they're doing the best to protect their stock. Although when you get into football, you know that it's a violent game anyway. But that's just me. So I might be in the minority here, but I'm not really in favor of it just personally.
I feel you, bro, because I think like as a competitor, like, and we use it all the time. Like if you all ever look at the way I do my hashtags, tape don't lie is one of my hashtags, and I just feel like if I go in there and I haven't seen you play, unless you got some crazy tape, like I can't really throw you in the board because like as a scouter, you would think that they would go a lot based off of how you looked on tape and not like your measurables.
Yeah.
And so I think that like your measurables should go into it, like how I've seen you, like, all right, cool, I'll give you a workout. All right, cool. He's a crisp route runner, but you got to see how they run routes where someone can get their hands on them. So like at some point, tape don't lie. And so I think that that's where like I side with that. But I do understand, like, all right, you've had a hamstring issue. All right, cool. Take a break. You already know, like, based on you were already a first round grade going into the season. Don't ruin it by making it worse, making an injury worse, slide it down to where that could affect your draft stock.
Yeah.
Stuttered. It was struggling over here. Fight back. But yeah, like I just think that it's one of those things where you got to balance out between the two. And at the end of the day, it's a business, so I can't fault them for protecting the business. Next up, and I'll take this one. Titans GM Robinson was fired today, and the question is, should he have been fired? I don't even think that really should have been the question. It should have been more of on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad? Because not giving AJ Brown his money in the season that he's having, while also being like, I think it's the first time in a while that we've seen like someone go through their rookie contract and then go to another team at the ilk of the receiver that he was. And we talk about him all the time, like it's just something about him, like just thinking like he doesn't run the fastest. He's not the greatest route runner, but he's able to get and contort his body, get the jump ball, and he's a big receiver. So somehow he's able to get that, at least create the space to where he can get the ball. Where like you got someone like a Devontae Adams, amazing route runner, Stephon Diggs, amazing route runner, Tyreek Hill, crazy speed. Becca being able to catch a slant, take it to the crib. Like you got those people that are like that, but then you got those people that just like they just know how to get open.
Yeah.
Instead of giving him his bread while being in his mid-20s, you trade him. You gave that crazy contract to Ryan Tannehill when he really hadn't shown you that, like, people always say, oh, the market, but it's at some point, like, Dak showed you, all right, cool. They didn't lose those games in the playoffs because of Dak. So, like, when you look at Ryan Tannehill, it's year after year after year, like, we get it. He's a decent quarterback, but to give him that type of contract when he's the reason y'all losing in the playoffs, like, I just think that I just completely disagree with the way that things were handled. So I agree. Like, on a scale for me, I would have said, like, once he traded AJ Brown, get him out of here. 15.
15. Whoo, so we breaking the Richter scale here. Yeah, we breaking the scale. No, I actually do agree. I think for some people are shocked though, Ralph. But it's more so based off of like the resume of him. He actually has a good resume. The problem is it's not good enough for what they're actually trying to do. So like, because in front of him, he has a 60% win percentage in 7 seasons. Their 9th highest winning percentage in the Titans, back-to-back AFC South Division titles, and they made the playoffs 4 of the last 5 seasons. However, the assistant owner, whatever, she said, I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met. So when you look at, okay, what has John Richardson accomplished over the course of his tenure as a GM? Sure, it's been good, but it's not been great. They did make the AFC Championship that one season. However, you drafted Caleb Farley, a high risk, high reward cornerback who had injury concerns, and since he's been there, he's been on the injury reserve for the last 2 seasons. This year, he had a herniated disc, got placed on the IR. Last year, torn ACL, got placed on the IR. I'm not laughing at the injury. I'm just saying like how crazy this is. You know what I'm saying? Then you got Jeffrey Simmons good, you got Derrick Henry good, but then you trade AJ Brown when you say you want to get over the hump, or that's what you know, the owner wants to, do, right? So you trade AJ Brown, to your credit, and we all saw Mike Vrabel's reaction in the war room when that happened, and he was not pleased. He didn't want that to happen. You get Treylon Burks, a nice receiver, but he's not AJ Brown. Can't be the number one, and he's dealing with injury. So when you look at all those kinds of things, when you look at Adoree Jackson, when you look at Jonnu Smith, and you see what happens, and not paying guys, you're drafting guys, and then when you're letting guys go, you're not replacing guys. So I believe the straw that broke the camel's back, Ralph, like you said, was the AJ Brown trade. They're looking from the sky box, the press box, whatever, and they're like, "Oh, he just went off. This is over." You know what I'm saying? So I think that if you just look at it from the surface level, you're like, "Oh man, why?" But then when you look at it, like you put it in depth, it's like it's actually a good move. So I agree. I would probably say like a 15 as well, just because you're trying to get to the Super Bowl, and you seem like you took one giant leap back by getting rid of the weapon. Even if you took Ryan Tannehill out and put Malik Willis out, who was Malik Willis throwing to, right? So
Right.
yeah, I agree with you, Brad. All right.
And then next up, it's come out. Lamar has a sprain. Was it PCL?
Yeah, PCL.
Which puts him out for about 3 to 4 weeks. For you, if you're a Lamar, how soon are you coming back? Like, how about on a scale of 0 to 100 with the hopes of winning a Super Bowl? Because
right,
we both agreed that they had a big chance this year.
Yeah.
So on that scale of 0 to 100, how healthy do you have to be for you if you're Lamar to come back?
Well, 0 to 100, how healthy? He has to be at least 85%. I would say 85%. The reason being is because of the offense that he's in. Like me and you, we discussed for so many years, and we're not gonna have to go down that, for the sake of time. But the way Roman utilizes Lamar in ways, and even running and stuff like that, like bro, like nah, man. So he needs to actually be above 80% for me. And then he has a PCL. Now, I found it interesting. They didn't tell us what grade, Ralph. That's why I said I'm still waiting, because if it's a grade 1, it can be 10 days. If it's a grade 3, that can be like you said, 4 weeks up to a month. And if that's the case, I'm not trying to come back with a grade 3 PCL strain. The PCL is your posterior cruciate ligament, so it's on the back of the knee. So it's what gives the knee stability in the back. And so what happens is, if you're cutting, how do you cut with the PCL? So it's one of those situations where with Lamar, when they say, "Oh yeah, it looks like it'd be cool," it could be days to weeks. That's coach speak. That usually when I hear that, I'm like, "Oh man," you know what I'm saying? Because I heard the same thing last year with the ankle, and he never played again. So to answer your question, I'm like, I would say at least by the Bengals game, only because they didn't really invest in old boy. You know what I'm saying? But at least if he's a competitor, he's a warrior, and in the Bengals game, at least that may be for the division. So I will at least target that game. The Steelers game, we had to think about it from a statistical standpoint and historical standpoint. The Steelers play Lamar Jackson very well. He hasn't been able to beat them since he's been a starter, because they take away the outside hashes and they make him throw in the middle of the field and do all this other kind of stuff. And so I think with Tyler Huntley and the way that they changed the play call, I think Tyler Huntley could get us 2 games, because our defense, like we talked about before the show, is a little bit better this year. A lot healthier and just better overall. I think if we could slug out 2 wins and go 10-7, we'll be a wild card team. So I would say if I'm Lamar, I'm going to aim for the Bengals game, unless like me and you or everyone else, we hear news that he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. So,
yeah. So off to the fast break. Anthony Davis has been on a tear, got the Lakers at 8-2 over the last 10 games. Has he projected himself as a favorite out in the front?
As a favorite? I'll let you start off.
Yeah. I really wanted you to go first on this one, because, like, for me, personally, I'm just like, just because you have a stretch of games where, like, you go crazy, I'm not going to throw you over people that's been hooping from day one.
Right.
So, like, the Lucas, the Jason, Like Jason Tatum is still my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Like because the way that they don't look like they missed a beat. They look like they got better.
Yo, he's doing on both ends.
Like I think that like, and then it's all gonna the success of that team is gonna boil down to the three people that we're talking about. But to a certain degree, I just think that you never hear questions of Jason Tatum where with Luka at some points in the game we hear about his weight, we hear about effort on defense, we hear about just like there's things that we hear about him, but when it comes to Jason Tatum, we hear about him possibly being the best defender on his team.
Mm.
He's possibly between him and Jaylen Brown is definitely the offensive leader as well. So I don't really see a hole in his game to where, plus the success of that team. For me, the way that they've been playing, his team is out in front. I feel like they've been kind of playing equally. Him and Luke have been balling since day one, so I'm gonna give it to Jason.
Okay.
And I stand with that.
Okay. Yeah, no, Jason is a really, really good pick. I believe it's between three guys, and I don't have a problem with Jason being at the top. Giannis there too, you know what I'm saying? So he's continually to roll. So I really actually believe it's between those two guys with Luka behind them, really, if we're being honest. And then I don't know, Steph is somewhere in there. I don't know why. Their record is different, but I just feel like Steph's always been playing great. But yeah, I agree with Magic Johnson. Yeah, because Steph's just like, I'm gonna play till I'm like 40 at this point. So, but with Anthony Davis, like I sent to you, like Magic Johnson and that cult mentality, man, that Laker cult mentality. He's like the spokesman, the big brother. That's why I had to get out, man. No, I don't have no shade on Magic, but I'm like, see, when he gets on Twitter, it's like, bro, like just deactivate, man, log off. No, but blasphemy. He's leading the MVP race. I'm like, Magic, how is he leading the MVP race when he wasn't doing any of this stuff when the season started? He was
2
getting
weeks
hurt.
Question if we should trade him. Now he's the MVP front runner,
and he's leading the race. We are questioning his mentality. We are questioning his health. We are questioning his heart. Let's be real. We've been doing it since the offseason. I know you have a little more faith in the Lakers than I did, but the key is always unlocking AD. We saw in the year that the bubble happened. Before the bubble, we didn't have I don't think we had this show at the time, or maybe we did, but I said unlocking AD because it was the fourth quarter woes, right? And then they finally unlocked him. Now we're seeing AD for a full season, and I actually think he might be playing better than, it's 10 games. Through 10 games, this is the best I've seen him play. So I believe that he's creeping into the race, but he would probably be in the top 10, at the bottom of the 10, most definitely. And his stats right now, Ralph, 95 points in the last 2 games. I believe that's like most since like Kobe. 35 points per game, most in the NBA. 16 rebounds per game, most in the NBA. 3 blocks, second most in the NBA. So I'm not quite sure who is ahead of him in the block category. And we had to look at how he's doing it. He's limiting his 3-point attempts. He's shooting less than 2 attempts from the 3-point line, an area where he was struggling this season. So he's limited that. He's getting a lot of his paints in the point, shooting close to 60% from the field, and he's doing it up against star players like a Kristaps Porzingis, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, who also played well in that game. And he's bought into Darvin Ham. Shout out to Darvin Ham. Buying into him, saying, I want you to play the 5. He's sucked it up, and he's performing on both ends. That's what me and you, we like about it. And then he had a 55-point performance versus the Wizards, 73% from the field. I got the stats, 9 for 9 from the line, and he's healthy. So I think the combination of health, the combination of Russ, also. You said what?
I said, yeah, but how long though?
Oh yeah. But yeah, the whole LeBron, Russ, and all that dynamic that's interesting because Russ is playing rejuvenated as well. So I just really want to see how they ride this out, man. And they got the Cavs today. They played Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Next stretch is going to really tell us like how good that team is.
Yeah. So, but yeah. I like I said, I'm not a Laker fan, but I like to see teams operating at their optimal levels, and the league is more fun when AD is playing at a high level because he's so skilled. I know you always say he's the most skilled at his position in terms of handling 3-point mid range. So yeah,
him and if not Kevin Durant, but Kevin Garnett stayed.
Yeah.
Because like Kevin Garnett in his prime was like a different player than how he came in the league.
Yeah.
Which is so like as great as he was, just think if he had still was like grabbing a rebound and leading the break and then like running the point at some point. He was low key playing the 3. Then it was like at a certain point, like his whole skill set, he kind of went down to the block where he just dominated the block. And so just think about like him and Anthony Davis, if he had Kevin Garnett's like mindset, like that
the DMX mentality,
it'd be crazy. It'd be wild.
Yeah, definitely.
But over the last couple of weeks, there was a women's college basketball tournament that was taking place in the Mirage. They gave them fold-out chairs instead of bleachers. There was a girl that fell and hit her head rather hard. Took like 30, 45 minutes for an EMT to come see her. And so because of this lack of accommodation for that tournament, the likes of Dayton, the likes of Purdue, and one more team I'm missing pulled out of a tournament that was taking place at South Point. So this leads in. We always talk about how women are treated within their sport, the accommodations we talked about in the Final Four last year versus the men. No man is falling to the ground and hitting their head and waiting 45 minutes for someone to come check on them. Yeah. How bad is this for women's sports?
Well, I think if we look at it from an isolated incident, right, that scenario or that circumstance, that particular incident is just bad, and you could say, well, is it an error on facilities on a member who was supposed to call, all that kind of stuff. So I think someone may make the case for that. However, just overall, in terms of just in general, if this has been a recurring theme and multiple teams have had a profound effect on multiple teams pulling out, then you have to look at it from more of a broader scale. And I believe that it is a really bad look for the women's sports, like you said, because accommodations, player and fan safety, etc., is key. Period. If me or you are running a business or me or you are running a facility, we have a set plans in place. We have or any company, an emergency action plan, an EAP in place. So the fact that there was, I feel like negligence dealt on this part in terms of, safety, someone's health and their safety and that effect that it could have, and not just them, but other people. I think that it's definitely a really bad look. And it shouldn't have happened, and they need to actually learn from this. But it's unfortunate that it actually happened. And I feel like there was a complete disregard for, that whole entire the whole status of the sport in terms of how they actually went about everything. You know what I'm saying? And before any games or anything like that was played, just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and then something winds up happening, and now we see the result. So yeah, it's a bad look. It's definitely a bad look, and definitely, thoughts, prayers go out to people that got, hurt. So
yeah, I think it's very unfortunate, man. And it's like, I think with the Aces winning, I actually just saw the Aces tickets went on sale. Season tickets are on sale now. I'm probably gonna grab me like 2 or 3 tickets, bro. Because like you can pay like in payments up until the season starts.
Yeah,
so for 6 months, it starts in May, so you got 6 months. You can make 6 payments to break that price down. But I just think it's a bad look for the sport, bro. Like having a daughter, and I think that like to see how men are treated, even like just in college, and it's like it's so unfortunate. But you also got to look about the money and try to maximize as much money while also making sure that you're treating people a certain type of way. Is that balance? And I think it's unfortunate and it sucks, but it's just a harsh reality of what we got to think about when it comes to women's sports. Yeah. For the sake of time, we're going to skip a few topics and skip over where Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, took the job in Colorado after we were talking last week about how he shouldn't. But a raise is a raise, a win is a win.
Yeah.
So from the backlash that he has received from our community,
right,
is Coach Prime a sellout?
All right. So, this is gonna go viral or whatever. Like, but I don't believe he's a sellout. I believe that things change, and I saw the video of his players that they didn't show on TV. I think that it's more, and I talked to Tar, shout out to him about this. I talked to a couple different people. I talked to my dad about this. It's a situation for me, Ralph, just my perspective, because I had to think about it. Because me and you said I wouldn't take the job, but it was more so due to where it was at. I think that he always had a goal in mind. However, something bigger came, and I think once his son got involved, Ralph, the chance to actually play for the Heisman, and it's like, bro, I'm not getting any type of recognition. My son's not getting any type of recognition. I think when I look at it from the fact that he wasn't respected as a coach over there, sure the players respected him to a degree, but remember when he first got there, which people won't talk about in the news, he got stuff stolen from him, right? He got stuff stolen from him. You look at the Eddie Robinson situation, and we all saw that video, and they said, oh, well, he tried to, he didn't want to shake hands with Prime and, pushed him and all that kind of stuff, right? So things start to swell up, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, hey,
sweat.
He ain't. So like there's been a recurring theme of that. So I think that's one incident you can look at. Then we look at Shadur Sanders, right? And you get, okay, I said that I felt like he's a Heisman candidate, period. But they can always say, well, look who you played. So if you're on Colorado, you have a chance to actually elevate the level of competition that you play. Travis Hunter has a chance with the facilities, because I saw him do the tour with his family. It's up on YouTube. You can watch that. Imagine some of the guys he can take over there. I think with Prime, and we watched him, me and you together, I think on I Am Athlete, and we listened to what Channing said. And I think that they saw Prime as being a beacon for change. And I think Prime to spend 3 years there and do what he was able to accomplish was amazing. Also, you never know who he's going to inspire, who's going to be put in place, or the people that he has set in place, and them to carry out that mantle. Also, guys like Hugh Jackson, guys like Eddie George, all these other guys who are coaches, excuse me, I don't know, just say guys at HBCUs, they can look at Prime and be like, okay, well, I can use this kind of, and I don't even like to use the word, because when you use the word stepping stone, it could be seen as positive or negative, depending on what connotation, where I can get to the next level and then maybe even to the NFL. Because I feel like he wants to get a gig there, and I feel like he always wanted to go to FSU as well. So I feel like they didn't look at coaches from the HBCUs ever for NFL gigs like that. And also, why is it, with all due respect, Hugh Jackson only coaching at college? But anyway, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Hugh Jackson. So I think for me, Ralph, and this is me being honest, it was one of those things where I didn't want to overreact to. I really didn't want to overreact to. Deion Sanders is not Martin Luther King Jr. He is not Malcolm X, guys. He's just not. However, I could understand when you have parents and players who wanted to go there because they were going for Coach Prime. I understand it. And I think those players have a right to maybe feel upset, mad, upset, sad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, I do know as a human being, a man, woman, whatever you want to, all that kind of stuff, any individual has a right to do what's best for themselves, because you only get one life to live, as well as their family. And so Deion Sanders did not do this for money, right? But it was a better job, and also for his son. So I think there's so much stuff that's going on that I can't necessarily call him. I can't call him a sellout, because I didn't think about it like that. But I was like, oh snap. I'm like, he sat up there, he said such and such and such and such. But then I was like, well, why are you leaving? And under the reasons valid, and did you tell the team about it? And I just feel like it's a he can't win in this situation. Just with the people. I think maybe for himself, but I don't think for the people. And remember, I don't know how Ralph feels about this, guys, because he could be complete opposite. But I feel like he may not be able to just win in the public eye for some people, and other people will get it. But I think for Dion, I'll end it with this. I told Tar, because me and him talked. we're like, how long was he supposed to stay? And I feel like he would have had to stay extremely long for him to get the resources that he wanted to get in terms of money, which he wasn't really getting like that, and also to get the talent like the offensive line and all that kind of stuff to face against the Alabamas. I feel like there's some barriers that you try hard to break, and I feel like Dion was like, I don't really have this time, and I have a son, and so he's like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So I think he can inspire people in some ways and he put a blueprint down, but at the same time it's like some people will feel like it was a job undone. So I just feel like ultimately the people that feel that way is because he can't win in their eyes. That's the most what is it, mediated answer I can give you.
Me personally, bro, I feel like he's not. I definitely disagree with the sellout label.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where like you would have liked to see him stay a little longer.
Yeah.
Really get to the point where he could play like a Power 5 school.
Yeah.
And that's cool. At least where I would have been cool with him getting to at least like the opportunity to get there. Because then at that point you can really see how much change can you affect. Mm-hmm. Because on one side I get it. When it comes to the circumstances and the environment that's down there. You got people busting in, stealing his stuff. He ain't swag. But then when he leaves, he a sellout. But I thought he was swag.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one right there, yeah.
So, like, my whole thing is, I get it. It's one of those things that you would have liked to see him be there longer.
Yeah.
He had HBCU games on ESPN.
Mm-hmm. Got a couple of them on there.
We was watching marching bands go crazy at halftime on ESPN.
Drumline.
Right. And so, like, then Under Armour. All the things that Shannon Sharp mentioned. Like, the things that Shannon Sharp didn't mention. Like, if you go through and look at everything that he was able to do and what he did, you start to think, like, all right, I'm able to get these guys to the next level because of who I am and the type of coaching that I have over here. Mm-hmm. And them coaches got to eat.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it, Prime. I was like, I got your vision. But the way these bills were set up, like, versus what I was getting, what I can get paid.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, you asked me to take a major pay cut. So it's like, all right, cool. The ballpark figure on his is about $5 million, but I've seen anywhere from $4.5 million to almost $6 million per year on like a $30 million contract. So you got to imagine what is that payment for the assistant coaches?
Exactly, the ones that aren't used to getting the money and all that, you know.
And then it's like, all right, so cool. On top of that, you got then Shador going into his junior year.
Yeah.
And where he's playing at, the type of football that he can play, it's like, all right, cool. The numbers he was putting up, he's doing that in the Pac-12 where the UCLA's and the USC's are still going to be there for a few more years.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's one of those things where it sucks, but you understand the commitment and the sacrifice that he's willing to take it on the chin, pause, if needed, for his people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, cool, I got people that is going to benefit me going up and pay, me going up in talent and in the difficulty. But it's like, dang, you're doing that for a Power 5 school, which is pretty much going to be a PWI, predominantly white school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I get it. But at the same time, he left a blueprint. And it's like, when you have the Eddie Georges, that's at Tennessee State. When you have Hugh Jackson, I think, was he at Grambling?
Yeah.
Like, you have people that can leverage what their connections and what they know and what they have to do better for their school. But it's like, why is he getting all this? Because it's Prime. And nobody's as big as him. Like, he's one of the biggest athletes in the 90s. Like, I was talking about this yesterday.
Period. Played in Dallas, too.
He was on the
Mariners?
Pivot.
Pivot. Yeah, the podcast. Yeah.
90s, there was a handful of athletes that were that dude. There was the Bo Jacksons in the early 90s. You got Mike, Dion, and Ken Griffey.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you start to think about these people, and like, there hasn't been anybody that's that great that had that level of notoriety to go into coaching, but then he goes to one of our schools. So it's
Yeah.
like you kind of feel like he's one of yours, and then it's like this kind of stat hurts a different way when one of yours just like ups and leaves. But it's like, what? How long is he supposed to stay?
Yeah. So they'll call him a sellout, and people will use it as a coping mechanism, and some people really will believe that, and all that other kind of stuff. But we're not a monolithic group as Black people that all act and think the same way. But I could see the bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? And also, I'm very I choose my words wisely before I throw certain words and terminologies around. You know me, because you really have to know everything that's in a person's heart before you can call them that. So
Right.
yeah.
And
Excuse me.
up next, man, we got college football.
Football Americano, the college football. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. All right. So kind of bonus because we just kind of have it. It's just official, but it's a 2-3 weeks away before
Yeah,
we
yeah.
actually
Just
get
a little preview, little preview.
just a little preview, a little breakdown. But we got Georgia, number 1 Georgia
Georgia.
versus number 4 Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a number 2 Michigan versus a number 3 TCU.
Right.
Before we get into it, because we do got couple minutes, is this the right 4 for the playoffs?
You ready for it, ladies and gentlemen? I'm gonna say it is. I'm gonna say it is. And I heard about Alabama, and don't get me wrong, everyone's Bama, 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 you know. And I'm not saying this because I hate Alabama, but I actually decided, I was like, you know what, not decided, but I had to, right? But and also I remember that game versus Ole Miss. I wanted to hear the points, the talking points of Nick Saban, right? So I heard the talking points, Ralph, and he said, "Man, we lost some games, man, because our quarterback was hurt." It's like, but injuries are part of the game. He's like, man, and he's like, someone can make that statement, and that's a strong point. So you pretty much said that it was a strong point. But then you talked about we played in the SEC and some games on the road and tough and all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, the best teams win against the best opponents and the toughest conditions, right?
Right.
And you know, the Ole Miss game, we beat Ole Miss and they were number 9. They were top 10. They weren't top 5 though. But me and Ralph were on here and we talked about how that wasn't a convincing win. So by all intents and purposes, as much as it would be cool to see Alabama and all that kind of stuff, I've seen Alabama every single year. So I'm
Right.
cool with the 4, bro. Like that's just me personally. I didn't feel like Nick Saban gave a really compelling argument. You know what I'm saying? That's like, I'll give you this. If Marvin Harrison, right, got jacked up, completely jacked up, right? And you already don't have the other receivers. So if Marvin Harrison went out for the season, you guys lose a game or lose 2 games. I'm not bringing you guys into the playoff, man. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it, bro. Because I
Right.
don't want to see Ohio State without Marvin Harrison. So, so there you go. So I'm like, that's another reason why I'm not letting you guys in. So, but I get it. I understand Saban's argument, but I just don't think it was strong enough to usurp some of these other teams. I know TCU. I believe TCU lost that little conference joint, but yeah, they did. Yeah.
Championship game.
I was like, it was the conference championship game, but their quarterback is fun to watch. So, yeah, I'm cool with it. So we can proceed. You know how you want to do.
So up next, now we give our actual analysis of how we feel about the game. You can do your prediction. You can save it for later.
I'm saving my prediction for later, but I'll do a little analysis too.
Yeah, I'm down to do a little analysis. I think it's going to be a really good game, man. I think it's one of those things where can Ohio State make up for the loss that they just had? And
Right.
because you got to think, like, all right, is Michigan have the defense and the athletes that Georgia's going to have?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were only able to muster up this amount of points versus this, but it's like one of those things where you play every year. So you can chalk it up as it's a rivalry game. We kind of know the offense. They just got new people to run that offense versus someone who has never played that team.
Yeah.
regardless of how good their team is or not. So I think that it's going to be one of those things where can Ohio State muster it up? Can they create a balanced attack to where they can create enough points, put enough points on the board to put some pressure on Stetson to have to put up points on on their defense?
Mm.
Because for me personally, he doesn't impress me that much.
All right.
I think they have a heck of a defense, and he's a good enough. He has enough mobility and a good enough athlete to where he can make plays, to move chains and get and put points on the board. But it's also I think that defense carries that team. So I think it's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be a good one. I really think that all the games are gonna be good. There's no one where I'm thinking like Georgia versus Michigan last year. It was like, who these boys finna get wiped?
Yeah.
They finna get wiped off this football field.
No, I think with the Georgia and Ohio State game, it's funny that every time I hear about Stanton and I see him and I think of the tight ends and all that stuff, man, I get flashbacks and nightmares of Greg Roman. Because they always talk about the tight ends and hitting the tight ends and all this stuff, man. I'm like, man, Greg Roman at Georgia, could you imagine? But I mean, his system might work there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get him out the NFL, but he's going to Stanford probably. But yeah, I definitely they got to be physical. They got to play bully ball, Ralph. They got to really shut down OSU's rushing attack on the other end. So I think the trenches is going to be key for this game. He who wins in the trenches will win the game. They got to, put safety help on Marvin Harrison. You cannot let the playmaker beat you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that if they can get physical, they can control time possession. If they can utilize Bowers at the tight end position and not make Bennett have to throw 50 times or something like that, I think if they can dominate just the trenches and the run game and control the game that way, I believe that's going to be huge for Georgia. And I talked about earlier in the season how I felt like Georgia was my pick to repeat or potentially repeat. And they lost some guys. Well, actually, they lost 5 starters on the defense, and they were able to replenish where they still had guys at their linebacking position and at all three levels. So while you lose 5 guys, you have 3 key guys on defense and at the front 7, at the linebacker position, and also at the back end, you have all American talent there. So I think that's going to be key. And then for Ohio State, just playing up tempo, man, and force, like you said, with Bennett, like you don't trust him as at the quarterback position like that in terms of throwing the football, make him prove it and get into a shootout. So if you get into a shootout, then you're playing right into Ohio State's hands. So that's how I feel about the Georgia and Ohio State game.
Yeah, I think that it's gonna be a good one. I'm nervous as an Ohio State fan, but we're gonna see what happens. Up next, we got number 2 Michigan versus TCU,
Mm-hmm.
and to I hate to sound cliche because we just said it about the last one, but
Okay.
the ability to control the trenches is really gonna say who wins this game
Yeah.
because Michigan has a good quarterback, TCU has a Heisman finalist, but Michigan has been able to run the ball like crazy all year. So can TCU
It's a weakness.
just take
Well,
that out to where it's no
yeah.
longer a strength is where it's
Mm-hmm.
really going to boil down to. So I think that I hate to say it be so cliche, but whoever wins the trenches is going to win this game.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think just dominating in the run game, for Michigan, just really harassing TCU and extending the game, making them get tired. I believe they can do that. They're going to definitely be able to do some things, and they also have to run a quarterback contain, maybe have a spy, something on Duggan, man, because you can't have him running all over the field. So that's one thing, you know what I'm saying? Because he's going to try to do everything and lay his life on the line to win this game. Um, and also I noticed a stat. I actually had a stat here that they're number 1 and 5 in point differential. So TCU is number 1 in point differential in the second half of the season, and Michigan is number 5. So while TCU is underdog in this game, plus 1,600 so far, the betting line, I believe that they have a chance, and they're also a fun offense to watch if they can get that. And also, they're going to have to force some turnovers. I think that they're going to have to find a way to strip the ball or get some sack fumbles or interception um, on Michigan's end. So, yeah, but Michigan has some athletes, man.
Yeah.
They got them athletes, so it's going to be, I'm like you, in the trenches, man.
All right. So we got a few teams that are 5-win teams with the hope of still making the playoffs. I mentioned some off camera.
Let me pull up my standings. So
I'm gonna sit here because I just had this conversation with Tar. And I was curious to see how he really looked at it, because I just feel like he's such a pessimist. That's my dude, though. I feel like he's such a pessimist. Yeah. But we were talking about the Raiders.
Right. Oh, he gave up on y'all in like week 2. So
the ability, and I was just like, yo, I was like, Raiders run the table.
Mm-hmm.
And we're 5-7.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have 4 games left.
Yeah. Let me see. You got Rams, Patriots, Steelers, Niners without Jimmy G.
We got 5 games.
Yeah, and Chiefs.
So we got 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
And we're 5-7.
Yeah.
And it's like, after you mentioned, you got the Rams who are most likely going to end up going with Baker Mayfield as their starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So, not to say we chalk it up as a win, but it's a winnable game.
Right.
And you got Mac Jones. That game is going to boil down to, can we create enough points? Because Mac Jones has struggled this year. So can the defense make it matter and get to the quarterback, while also can the offense keep Derek Carr upright so he can get the rock to Devontae Adams? Which I think is really funny. Like, when you go on like social media sites and look at like ESPN, they make it seem like they're not talking about Devontae Adams at all.
Right.
But he's like top 5 in every major receiver statistical category.
Because they want to run with the narrative that he left Aaron Rodgers, so he can't possibly be productive.
Because I'm like, he's leading the league in touchdowns.
All right. It doesn't fit their narrative.
He's 3rd in receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like 5th or 6th in receptions.
Yeah.
And he leads the league in yards per catch. So like, I don't get it. I think that, but when you think about the standings is really, really start to think about where you really got to think about the likelihood of these teams making it to the playoffs. And I really think that the Falcons have a legit chance, bro, because of how weak the division is. They're at 5-7. They're second behind the Bucs are 6-6, and they're leading the division.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
So like, but it's also the Falcons, and who do they have on their team? Kyle Pitts is out, on IR. But then you see the Packers. I think the Packers have a legitimate chance at a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings are gonna definitely run off with that one.
So it's funny you say that, because the team I like the Lions as a sleeper.
I said that they would win the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Not happening. And you and Char both were high on the Lions coming into the season. I still like the Lions as a sleeper. Jared Goff, because Jared Goff, I think that they've been able to unlock him, and I think it comes down to quarterbacking and playing good game. Yeah, they have to play the Vikings. I'm looking at their schedule. That's why I kept looking down, because I'm pulling my schedule. Then they play the Jets. Quarterback situation in New York, you play the Panthers, that's a winnable game. You play the Bears, that's a winnable game. And then you play the Packers. And the Packers are no juggernaut right now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the Lions actually are my team. I think that they could do it. The AFC West, the Chargers, it's interesting because if the Chargers win against Miami, then it's like, So you have that. Your schedule, I could definitely see you guys winning maybe 3 of those games, but you do play the 49ers. The problem is I don't know if that's on the road or not. So I have to see if that game is on the road. They don't have Jimmy G. However, I did send you a stat that apparently, like when he doesn't throw a touchdown, I think they're like 8-1, and then 2 of those games are playoff games. And also the 49ers, their defense is just really, really good, and they still have skilled position players. So I'm actually going to go with the Detroit Lions. I like what they have brewing over there. DeAndre Swift is still there. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know, I'm a that yeah, we can talk about the unforgivableness of that Bills game, but they were able to hang with the Bills, you know, and we can talk about play calling and coaching situations. But I think the Lions out of the teams on there are the team that I feel like will sneak in as currently they're a number 5 team, 5-win team, but I think they're the team, Ralph, for me.
All right. And so
Yeah.
we were trying to talk about this, I think, pretty much the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
uh, but we ended up running out of time. I heard when Jay Williams was on the pivot, they brought it up, and he easily said John Morant.
Mhm.
And but I think that when you think about this, the whoever's going to be the face of the league, you got to think about it from. It depends on how you look at it, because I think that it being an American-based league, you whoever is the face of America is the face of the league. But then you got to think about like the faces of the league over the last 20 years have all also been the international faces of the league too.
Right.
So you got Mike. Then you get the likes of a Shaq. Then you get Kobe, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady. But when you go, when you take those names over to China, you take those names to Japan, you take those names to Paris. Like they know those people. So like you got to think about like, all right, is John Morant going to be able to create that same appeal that Jokic is, the Joel Embiid's, the Giannis, the Lucas are going to be able to hold that name is going to hold weight. But also, when you think of Black culture, which is America,
And hoops are a part of that as well. Let's being
who
real.
is that? Who is that person? And that's
Yeah.
easily John Morant.
Yeah.
Hooping in Memphis, his stature, you just look at him, you don't even think that he finna go and do some of the crazy things that he does on that court.
Right.
While also he got that mentality that it's us against the world. So it's like it's easy to hold on to that. Where I don't think that people immediately go to Luka or like Giannis as like the face of the league because of that international pool. But I think that it's not crazy to think that John Morant will be the face of the NBA.
So I actually agree with you. I agree. I feel like they try to push Luca, but I look at what do kids want to play like? Do kids want to play like Luca? Do kids want to play like Giannis? Not saying that there aren't players out there or kids that want to, but they wanted to play like Curry because they found him more exciting, right? We talk about voters fatigue with Giannis and MVPs, right? He won 2. Jokic, voters fatigue with MVPs. Luca, he's going to win the MVP, and he has never won the MVP. So, you know what I'm saying? So every year, right? So overseas, Giannis. When I'll put it like this: if you're giving a shoe deal to somebody, who are you giving the shoe deal to out of those guys right now? John Morant, probably. Exactly,
Morant
Ja. Right. That graphic I sent you,
doesn't have a signature shoe though yet, right?
I don't believe so, or I don't not like with Nike.
Because he's a Jordan athlete, ain't he?
You might. Well, I don't know because he said he would give Mike work, so I don't know if he's a Jordan athlete talking like that. I really don't. I really don't know. I have to check. John Morant shoe deal. Let me see.
Well, John Morant is Nike. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Luca. My bad.
Okay, so he's about to get more now with Kyrie's situation and that ending. They're going to definitely prop him, but I think also Ralph, I look at it from the changing of the guard. Right, you talk about Memphis and all that kind of stuff, and I've always give the Warriors their credit because of what they were able to do against Boston. However, at some point, the dynasty will come to an end. I believe this is the last year of Draymond Green with the team, and I just feel like they always have good players, and they're gonna, cycle in Jordan Poole and all that. But I feel like another team will usurp them, and there's a lot of teams in the West, and it would be foolish to not think that Memphis isn't one of those teams and couldn't be one of those teams. They're probably one of like the 5 teams that we're gonna pick as a championship favorite or contender down the line, right? Because they're going to continue to get better, and they win with Ja, without Ja. So I think that Ja Morant, just based off the shoe deal situation, based off of his exciting play, based off of what fans want to watch on TV, based off of the team and the team's success, I think they're going to have a level of success, and they're going to continue to grow. I think that and also he likes the spotlight. Let's be real, you got to like the spotlight to be the face of the league. I believe that he's marketable. He has a cool look, a Iverson kind of vibe to him. Um, Not saying he's Allen Iverson, because Iverson was just different, just a different breed and all that kind of stuff. But the mentality that he has, right? And he's already with rubbing shoulders with the stars and etc. I think that he fits that bill more than Luca, who just kind of, hey, Luca, funny looking dude, and then Giannis, he's a little older now. I mean, he's not old, but he's older, 27 now, 28. So I think Ja Morant, to everything that you said and to your credit, I think that Ja Morant, at least for me, he would be the guy that I'm pushing as the face of the league until Victor Wembanyama comes, and then they're forced to pay. So now let me stop. But yeah, so I think it's gonna be Ja Morant. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. I think he has the attitude, because they
Mhm.
really wanted it to be Zion.
Oh, hey, Zion. Hey, I'm not gonna rule that out, especially if
But
they make this run that I
I
think
don't
they're gonna
think
do.
Zion has the personality yet. Every now and then
Right.
you get to see his personality, but he kind of has that goofy goober,
Yeah.
like southern kid, like type of
Yeah.
vibes, where like recently he kind of emulated Drewski in an
Right.
interview. Like on top of that, he kind of had like he has his little moments, but like to have that outward personality that John Morant has, nah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's gonna be.
Oh. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. I think here we go.
I don't know what
What happened is can we get you back, Ralph?
I don't know what just happened, but the internet was not rocking with your boy. I felt like
Okay.
I was rolled too, bro.
I
Crazy.
was like, what went down? It's good to have you back, but yeah, we were just saying John Moran, the face of the league, guys.
John Morant is definitely gonna be the face of the league. It's gonna be easier to prop him up. He has that outward personality and the swag. Got everybody doing
Mhm.
it. Oh, the gritty. I think it's called gritty.
Yep, the gritty. There we go. The gritty. So he got his dance, shoe, the whole nine. What more could you ask for?
Right, right. But
Yeah.
while we got it, we gonna get up out of here. Thank you all for watching. See us next week
See you
uh,
next week. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe.
on all of our socials. We will
Mhm.
be on and posting audio versions of the show on Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of that good stuff. But we out of here. Sorry for the voice. Been trying to drink my tea. I can't shake it. We out of here.
Peace.
Drink your tea and mind your business.